Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you to help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. Now, just quickly before we start, if you're watching this in 2021, my podcast co-host Stefanie Michele and I are going to be doing a live event on the 19th of December, and we would love for you to join us. I'm going to pop details in the link below, and there's an option to pay what you can afford, because if you want to come and connect, we want to connect with you. Anyway, I wanted to do a video about my binge eating recovery and how I maintain my recovery. I often talk about it's not a place that you get to. You don't suddenly arrive one day and think, I'm recovered and I feel amazing in my body and I never have any stresses or anxieties or worries around food. And quite often when I tell people that, they feel a bit disheartened, and it can feel a bit depressing to think, well, I'm never going to be free of this. I think it's likely to be an area of vulnerability for most people, especially if it's something you struggled with for many years. But that doesn't mean it's going to rule your life. It just means you might need to be a bit vigilant and pay attention when it comes to you and food. I think everybody gets to decide what recovery means to them. So the words I've chosen for myself about what my recovery is, it's 3 words, and it's balanced, regulated, and free. That's how I want to feel around food, and that's how I want to feel in my body. I really encourage you to find a few words that are your words. You're welcome to take mine, but I often think it's good to at least come up with a couple that are your own. And this is what you're trying to create for yourself, because we're very good at knowing what we don't want. When I ask people what do they want their relationship with food to look like, they'll tell me all the things they don't want. They don't want to feel out of control. They don't want to feel guilty. And when I ask people how they want to feel instead, people often get stuck because we don't know. And I think it's really important to focus on what it is that we're trying to create. That's going to be different from person to person. So how I do this may not be how you decide to do it, but I do think hearing other people's stories and experiences can be a really helpful part of trying to figure out our own way with this. So, the first thing that I do to make sure I do not binge is I eat regularly. I know that one sounds really boring, but let me say just a little bit more about it. So when I was going through this kind of semi-recovered state, where I would be balanced, regulated and free for a while, and then I kept slipping back and I was moving in and out, and then I got more and more time feeling balanced and regulated and free. One of the things that kept sending me back was if my appetite dropped, which it can do sometimes. So I'm someone, if I'm anxious or distressed or feeling low, I'm more likely to crave eating more. I want to overeat when I feel like that. But there are times when I'm excited about something, or something's quite new, or I'm absorbed in something where I lose my appetite. And I was still, even at that time when I was trying to recover, because it wasn't a diet thing, part of me was going, oh, this is kind of nice. My appetite's gone down. I'm going to go with this and see, maybe I'll lose a little bit of weight. Some of those thoughts were still around. And what would happen is I would go with that thinking, it's okay, I'm being an intuitive eater. I'm not eating much because I'm not hungry. But I found there was still always a backlash after that, and I ended up binging again. So now, it's happened to me recently, which is, there's something I was doing, I was quite nervous about it, and I was working and just in that productivity mode. And I noticed I just wasn't hungry when meal times were coming. And I remember thinking to myself, no, you need to eat, because there may be a backlash further down the line for you if you try and use this as some kind of sneaky way to eat less. So even if my appetite drops, I make sure that I still eat at least my breakfast, lunch and dinner. And the second one, I pay attention to any urgent feelings around food. Because that word urgent for me is what alerts me to when something is an urge, as opposed to I just really fancy that food because I really fancy enjoying that food. So if I think, okay, I've got a craving for something, the more urgent that craving feels, the more beneficial it is for me to go, okay, I need to create a bit of space. So an example, which I've shared, I think I shared it on the podcast, so some of you might have heard this before. I'd gone for lunch at my dad's house. We'd had a late lunch. We'd had dessert as well. It was about 3 p.m. I was quite full, and I remember arriving home, and as I got to my front door and I went to put my key in the lock, I had a sudden urgent desire for chocolate. Now at that time I lived opposite a shop, so it was 50 meters away to go and get some chocolate. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, no, because I've just had lunch and I've had dessert, and oh, what does it mean that I want this chocolate? And so I had this moment of confusion and indecisiveness. And so what I do in these situations, and what I did in this situation, on this occasion, I say to myself, Sarah, you're allowed chocolate, but it needs to be a peaceful decision. This doesn't feel peaceful. This feels like a conflict. It feels like a tension inside me. And if I go and get chocolate when I'm in that tense and agitated state, I could be setting myself up for some more cravings going on. So I told myself, just go inside, take an hour or so, make sure you are feeling calm and relaxed, and then make a decision about whether you want the chocolate. And I went inside and the urge for the chocolate disappeared. Now, it's not about whether I had the chocolate or not, it's about the state I'm in when I have it. So I notice if I've got an urgent feeling, if I want to buy something and eat it immediately, and even the thought of coming home and waiting to eat it feels uncomfortable, that's the time when I need to say, create some space, create that gap. But I can only create that gap when it's still an option to have the food. So for me, it's very much about the way I make my food decisions that keeps me in balance. Number 3, and this is a big one because I think it's a really important early step for anybody wanting to recover, and it's simply, I do not catastrophize overeating. I do overeat sometimes. Everybody does. It's quite a normal experience, and sometimes I might eat and regret how much I've eaten. But it's not accompanied by a sense of I've failed, I've messed up, and the most sneakiest one is I've got to make up for it. Because the minute you start saying I have to make up for it, then quite often what happens is you're setting yourself back into that diet mentality and you're anticipating restriction. I find that when I relax into it and I accept, it's okay, let me just see what happens. Chances are I'm not going to be hungry as soon. But let's see, that willingness to allow my experience to be whatever it's going to be. What I found when I can let that go is that I do naturally balance out. I used to be baffled by going on a holiday with people, and a lot of people eat more on holiday. And as a binge eater, if I was on holiday with people, I bet some of you can relate to this, I would eat less. So they're all eating more than they normally do. I'm eating less than I normally do. And at the end, I've heard friends say to me, oh, I can't wait to just get back to my soup and my jacket potatoes for dinner and not eating so much. I can't wait to get back to that and get back in balance. And I'd be there thinking, oh, I can't wait to get back and binge. So what I learned from that was that if I trust myself and I trust how I feel around food, because I let go of what I think that has to look like, I do naturally balance out. And I have had that experience now of going away on a weekend with people, eating more foods, more of the kind of foods that I don't necessarily eat that much of if I was on my own, and looking forward to coming back and just getting back into my routine of eating. That has been a big turnaround for me. And number 4, I've come to realize that eating or feeling a bit dysregulated or having extra cravings around food is often a red flag for me that there's something else going on that I need to pay attention to. So if my eating is feeling, I want to say a bit off, I think would be the best way to describe it. Maybe a lot more craving, maybe a bit more eating in front of the TV, a bit more eating past fullness. And I'm noticing I'm not feeling good physically, I'm not feeling good emotionally around food. There's something that requires my attention. So what I normally do from the food perspective is if I feel like I've had a few days where I'm feeling a bit off, I'll have a day where I bring a lot of attention and presence to my food. I don't sit every day, every single meal time, doing this perfect mindful eating, but if I'm feeling a bit wobbly around food, that's when I bring it in. It's not the all or nothing black and white thinking that normally says, okay, from this moment onwards, I'm going to always eat mindfully. No, it's just like, okay, maybe my next few meals, maybe in the next day, I just have to bring a bit more attention. I need to let go of the distractions when I'm eating, just for a day or two, just to kind of get myself back and feeling a bit more regulated and balanced again. And the final one, I just wanted to include because I feel like it's had such an impact on me in my life, is that I journal. Just free association, journaling. I don't, some people I know, some friends I'm thinking of, their journal is basically them reporting their day and what they did. For me, it's like this brain dump. I just spill out onto the page, usually once a day. Well, certainly once a day now, because recently, a few weeks ago, I started doing the Artist Way with a bunch of other therapists. For those of you who don't know the Artist Way, one of the tools in the Artist Way is that every morning you get up, you sit down and you write 3 pages of just a stream of consciousness free association. And some mornings it just looks like absolute nonsense, or even one of my friends who I'm doing this with said sometimes she finds herself just wanting to write her to-do list down. Whatever it is, it's not about writing something amazing, but it's something about when you just write and you just take a moment to reflect and put it out on paper. For me, it's almost something like a meditation about that. It's a way of checking in with myself. It's a way of releasing something. I notice themes that are coming up on the page. It's also a place where I can be really, really honest about what I'm feeling. If I'm struggling with feelings of one that's coming up for me recently, which I can't believe I'm going to say this on YouTube, but I think it's important to be honest, is I've been struggling with some feelings of envy towards someone. And I really, really don't like envy because it's just such a corrosive and it feels horrible, and it's certainly not a very attractive feeling on other people either. So, but by working through this on my morning pages, I've been able to turn that around and to release these feelings and turn them into something else. What would have happened historically, me a few years ago, is I might be feeling envy towards someone and I would just push it away because I don't like feeling envy, so I'm just going to pretend I'm not feeling that. And then it would probably like leach out in the way I spoke to that person and the way I behaved, and it would have an unconscious impact on me. So I think when we're more honest about our thoughts and feelings, they have less control over us. And what better place to be honest than in a journal that no one's going to see. I have an electronic notebook that's password protected. So even if somebody found it, nobody could get into it. Whatever it takes for you to feel safe. Because when I used to journal before, and I journal in notebooks, there was part of my mind, this is a little bit morbid, that would think, what if I died and someone read my ramblings and they thought, oh my goodness, we didn't know that was going on. So for me, I need to know that it's a really safe place, me in that journal, that I can put everything on there. And that has honestly been transformative. So I would encourage anyone in their lives to try and do this, to do it for 4 weeks every day and just see what you notice. If after 4 weeks you think, I don't feel any different and this isn't making a blind bit of difference to me, then put it aside. Maybe it's not for you. I hope that was helpful. I hope it's given you something to think about. As I said, this is my journey. It's not necessarily going to be the same for you. We're all different, but hopefully you got something from it. Anyway, thanks for watching and I will see you on the next video.